Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de a breakdown to what happens at most regular employment that can possibly give you a sense of enjoyment. After all, most people don't retire early, right? And we human beings are masters at rationalizing the things that we do. So it's got to be more than the money, right? Hey, XenPuck here. Another day not working for the man. Since I talk about early retirement a lot, today I figured I'd try something different and talk about the opposite of that. Work. Right. Now, I'm certainly not 100% out of the working world, as I do make these amateurish clips. Plus, my wifey still works, and I hear about her work drama all the time, so I have not forgotten what it's like, okay? But yes, it was her tales that inspired me to want to dive in a little bit into what about most people's jobs that they could possibly actually like and enjoy that would keep them there, okay? I know. Most of us work for the money, right? So that's certainly something. But to be frank, most jobs also don't pay that well. Heck, at least half pay less than the median, right? Get it? Terrible joke. Okay, anyway. But we humans are very, very good at making up excuses and finding the silver lining when we need to. So there's got to be other things that could make us like our jobs, right? That's the hypothesis. Anyway, so if you like rants like what I'm about to spew out, please subscribe, comment, share, and like on all that social media buzzwords. Or not, or whatever, do what you want. I'll be great regardless. So point number one, right off the bat, part of your job that you might enjoy is your actual job function. Ooh, sounds funny, doesn't it? But gotta start with basically whatever it is that of your job that you got hired to do that they wrote in that job posting, right? If you're police, that's policing. If you're a teacher, that's teaching, or marketing, or programming. Doesn't really matter, right? This probably takes up possibly the majority of your work time, but I'd say the actual function of the job can sometimes be hard to like, right? Much less love. After all, I always default to the janitor example, right? There are tons of janitors in the world, and we definitely need them, and yet, who exactly really enjoys the function of that job, right? The core function of that job. I know that's only one example, but I don't think it's that hard to say. There are some very broad categories, such as food services or retails, that are closer to the janitors than the creative types, right? I'm not saying that you can't love doing the work in these fields, but what percentage of people in these highly numerous groups actually live for that customer service experience? You tell me, right? Oh, by the way, there's technically, I would say, a 1B to this first point, and I need to mention it, and I think this is very common for most types of regular employment, right? And that's the type of job functions that I would consider menial or administrative, right? Almost all jobs have this, and as far as I can tell, almost nobody ever likes to do this part. And surprisingly, this is actually might be more of an issue for the more adventurous and entrepreneurish of us, right? If you run a small business, for example, it's almost a truism that you have to spend a whole lot of time doing the admin part, and that's probably not why you went into business to begin with, right? AKA, not the passion that drove you to be your own boss, right? Now, second part of I think what somebody might enjoy about their job, what I would call generally camaraderie with your peers, right? I think it actually can expand to your boss or to your troops to a lesser extent, usually speaking, right? I mean, remember, most people spend more time at their work than with their chosen family. Think about that for a second, right? More time trying to make a living than actually living with the people that you choose to be with. Yeah. So I hope that you like some of your coworkers and can shoot the breeze with them, right? I know for me personally, this aspect of work is probably the reason why I didn't retire even earlier, right? Maybe you can also call this, drinking the company Kool-Aid, or maybe the company itself might just call it its company culture, okay? After all, people want to go work at a place where the atmosphere fits their personality, right? A very, very common generic example would be, lots of people have heard how great things are at Google because it provides all sorts of perks at work. Now, why do they do that? It's mostly to make it so people want to hang out there all the time with the coworkers, right? With each other. But the main point of wanting people to be in the office is to get them to bond and collaborate, because that's where the real work magic may happen, right? By happenstance. So if you have a great work wife or husband, or at least no work nemesis, then I'm pretty sure you're on the right track of at least liking this part of the job, right? Oh, by the way, I am going to call mentoring an offshoot of the whole company culture thing and possibly even camaraderie, right? This is because people are generally much more susceptible to learning something new and having an open mind if they're in an environment where they feel like they belong, right? It doesn't strictly have to be you teaching a troop. It can easily work between peers as well. And keep in mind, I'm talking about, we are talking about working within a capitalism system here, right? Where most people are valued for some type of specialty. So there's almost always something someone else at work can do better than you. So an employee can enjoy teaching or learning, but you won't be able to do any of that unless you felt comfortable with, the culture that you're under, aka at least have a reasonable type of relations with your coworkers first, right? So that's why this is 2B. Now, finally, the wild card of the bunch, mildly, I would say, related to company culture, and that's office politicking. I know. Who the heck likes politicking? Well, actually, ambitious people do, or at least are attuned to it, or practice it, perhaps, instinctively. Now, for anyone who has had anything beyond the bare minimum level of experience, it will become very apparent that politicking is a real thing in pretty much most workplaces, okay? Heck, this might be the only thing at work that's keeping you down, by the way, right? You might be great at your job functions, you might be friendly with all your peers, but why maybe you didn't get the promotion, but somebody else did? Before people start to default to excuses like sexism or racism, I'd really ask whether you've been applying your personal charms specifically enough, where it matters and with the people who matters, right? I'm sorry to say this, but climbing the ladder at a regular job absolutely requires at least a working knowledge of how to play that Game of Thrones. I mean, literally the concept of office politics is the same as Game of Thrones, only the stakes are a little lower and people are a little chunkier, am I right? The point remains, maybe it's not politicking per se, but exercising our power over others that ego trip that you may like. Okay, think about that. Oh, of course, I would say even with this point, there's a little bit of a 3B addition as well. Maybe a thing that people really love at their jobs, it's not so much the function or the politicking, but the hope and potential that you may have at any given job. Because sometimes when we're not enjoying our current job function for whatever reason, right? But we continue simply because of the promise of that big promotion. Maybe it's making partner, maybe it's getting higher on that equity ladder or whatever. But I know plenty of people who stay at the jobs because they can't resist a really good golden handcuff. Is that you? Think about it. Anyway, I can tell you, me personally, I've always hated the admin stuff and the politicking, right? It really was only the camaraderie that made my working days fairly reasonable, right? I have never missed my corporate gig, but I do miss my old coworkers sometimes. I mean, I admit I am a super trooper, or rather I was. So I've always been extremely devoted to the job functions that I was doing. So maybe it's easier for me to care about coworkers who, or at least those who feel the same way, right? They show they care, so I can empathize with them, right? What are your personal preferences? Have I missed any other major parts of the modern work life? Or maybe, you guys categorize these types of things differently. Educate me. I would love to hear it. I'm open to new suggestions, okay? Cheers. À la prochaine.